Hello and welcome to Cosmic Compass, the leading astrocartography podcast. Today I have the leading expert in human design, Erin Claire Jones, and she's here to teach on human design and connecting with your authentic self. And today we're going to go into environments, finding your ideal environment based on your authentic human design. Erin, thanks for coming on the show. What an honor to have you here.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
I've been such a fan of your work for so long. I got your blueprint years ago and I still reread it all the time. It helps remind me of my frustration. When I'm frustrated in life, that's always my default negative emotion. And then the feeling of satisfaction when I feel that feeling at the end of the day of feeling satisfied, going back, rereading that blueprint, it reminds me of like when I'm on my aligned path, when I'm following my design, and just looking for those little cues, those little hints. So powerful and so helpful. So just such an honor to have you come on the show.
Oh my gosh, it's so my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, well, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are.
So I don't think I would have anticipated ever spending 10 years of my life on this wild mystical system that I was introduced to by a stranger, but life tends to unfold in unexpected ways. I was introduced to human design in 2015, 10 years ago now. And I was living in New York City and met a stranger at a party who sat next to me and asked to read my human design chart. And I was at, a moment in my life where I just wasn't quite sure what was next. And so I was really eager to hear what any stranger, honestly, or any mystical system had to say about me. But he proceeded to give me the most accurate, insightful, confronting reading I ever received. And he ended that conversation by saying, Erin, I think you're meant to do this. I think you're meant to share human design and teach it. And I want to be your teacher. And it was just like a whole crazy, wild, cosmic moment that it's funny looking back and being like, what if I hadn't gone to that party? What if I hadn't done this thing? But, here I am. So anyways, he was my first teacher. He really introduced me to human design and really showed me the ways that it could be such an incredibly practical and useful tool in every area of our life. Wow. From relationships to career to parenting to location, all the things. And so I've been on this journey for 10 years. There have been ups and downs and things that have worked out better than I could have imagined, and also things that have been harder than I could have anticipated. So it's been a wild journey, but it's been, my mission all along has been around how I can bring human design to a broader audience, how I can make it the most practical, accessible, empowering tool it can be, how I can share it in a very non-dogmatic way, in a way that makes it accessible to mystical and non-mystical people alike. And it's been really fun.
And you're doing it amazingly. I was looking at your website. You have so many offerings, your book, you have workshops, you have a free workshop coming up, you have your programs, your courses. You do so much. And as a projector, how do you do it? How do you do it? I'm so curious.
I feel like there are intense seasons and less intense ones. I think that I'm always trying to navigate how to do it as a projector. For those that are unfamiliar, projectors are not really here to be these consistent doers. Our energy ebbs and flows. And so really building space and rest and pause into our days is so essential. I think what has helped me the most, and I can't say that I'm nailing it all the time because I'm for sure not, but what's helped me the most is really getting clear on where I offer the most value in the business. And it's very clear that it's around writing and sharing human design. And so that means that there's a lot of parts of the business that I don't touch. I actually don't do much around strategy or operations or other pieces. And so really kind of finding the right partner, the right support that I can kind of be in that lane. But I will also say that projectors are very susceptible to overdoing. And so, it is a constant lesson for me too, of how can I, what is the balance that I can find, and how can I make sure that I'm not doing more just because I should, or just because I think that I should, and I'm really only doing what feels sustainable. Yeah. And also the other piece, a big transition that happened in our business was when I first started the business in 2015 was with my business partner, but on my own, it was 2017. I was only doing individual sessions, and those were amazing, but they only allowed me to kind of scale to a certain point. So, and I wanted to kind of keep growing and reaching more people, but I also did not have the bandwidth to sit with more people, and it also wasn't accessible to a lot of people. So that was a point of friction that we reached. And that's where the blueprint guide was born, of kind of creating these written readings for people that would really offer a lot of value. Readings, one-on-ones were useful in addition, but that was kind of the big step of like, oh, this can allow us to reach many more people. And while it required a lot more effort for actually quite a long time, it eventually allowed me to kind of step back and not do all the doing. So it's been a constant journey, but I think for me, it's always around how can I reach the most people, but also do it in a way that is sustainable for my energy.
It's brilliant and so brilliant. And that's one of the things actually we talk about a lot on the show is, interviewing astrologers and human design readers and people in this field. How do you build a business that sustains you and helps your life, but also getting the mission of the work out to more people? Do you have any advice for fellow astrologers or human design readers that are listening, or anyone who feels that calling, that call, that pull to show up during these times, to be of service? How do you build a business, but also stay in that heart-led connection? What advice do you have?
Oh my gosh, it's such a balance. It's so easy. I think when I first discovered human design, I was just like, this is amazing. How can I get it out into the world? And then like all of a sudden, we built a business around it, and then it was like sustaining our lives. And it was so interesting to be like, oh, I can get so pulled into the business that I like kind of lose the connection of why I was doing this in the first place, because there's so much to maintain day to day. So like, it is a challenging thing to kind of be in both worlds. But I guess what I would say is, and I think human design helps us in this way. I think doing whatever we can to kind of take care of ourselves and honor ourselves in a way that allows us to kind of show up at our best. I think for me as a projector, like taking a lot of space, a lot of rest, those are the things that allow me to like actually feel inspired and efficient and creative and kind of show up the best in my sessions and in my teaching. And so I feel like taking care of myself really kind of keeps me really anchored in the work for sure. And also like, I'm somebody who is actually not really a structure systems person, but, my partner is. So also finding people that maybe allow you to kind of build the structure and systems that allow you to kind of play and feel a little bit more free within, but also just like honor your design. Like you're a manifesting generator. Like you're not really meant to stick to the same thing. If you build a very rigid business that's like, this is the path for 5 years, it will probably feel incredibly boring for you. And so I think the way for you to maintain your excitement is to allow yourself to pivot and shapeshift and evolve and start new offerings and let go of old ones. And just like, while that might not be seen as like the traditional route that's recommended, I imagine it will actually be so much more fun for you and so much more successful. And especially as a manifesting generator, like when you're actually genuinely excited by what you're doing, like you just can't help but pull more and more people your way.
Oh, yeah. And, I always describe it kind of as a feeling of like, I go deep so fast. I learn so much so quickly, but then I know I've got a time limit on me because it's my whole story of my life is pivoting and changing careers every 5 to 7, 8 years. So when I'm in that season of that thing, I go deep, I share everything, I make a ton of resources, and then I move on to something else. So I love that. And I think all manifesting generators have got to allow themselves to pivot for sure, because the excitement does wear off. Tell me a little bit about human design and what exactly it is. And also, how is it different from astrology? Because I'm an astrologer. How is it different from that?
Well, yeah, I'd actually be curious your thoughts on that question as well. But for those that are new, human design is a system like astrology that is based on your time, date, and place of birth. And it gives us so much juicy, practical information around how you best move through the world. And what I mean by that is how you best make decisions, how you best collaborate with other people, how you can find your way into the right opportunities, how you might enjoy being communicated to, where you might be taken off track the most and how to find your way back, and so much more. I think what is so striking to me about human design is that it is equal parts mystical and practical. It is mystical like astrology. It comes from our birth information. It comes from, where the planets and it all was at our moment of birth. And yet I find the information it gives us is so easy to implement into our day-to-day. And so I would actually say that is one distinction I've seen. And I'd actually be curious your thoughts on this. Like, to me, human design is very practical and mechanical. It's like, this is your operating system. And now that you know it, you know how to work with it. I feel like astrology offers us so many profound insights into ourselves, but maybe a little bit less mechanical, a little bit less like day to day, this is how you do it. They will let you know the cycles that you're in and also kind of characteristics. But do you see that as a distinction, or do you feel like astrology can be equal parts mechanical in that way?
Such a big distinction. Yeah. Human
Yeah.
design, definitely that making decisions, like how to best align with your decision making and how you do things. That is so human design.
Yeah.
And the daily component, so practical. Astrology is a lot more seeing the entire your whole life. I like to
Right.
describe it as like it's your natal promise. So that
Yeah.
exact moment when you were born, your chart is showing you events that will happen 20 years from now. Your chart is showing you your friends and who they are, your siblings, what are they like, and how does that correspond with other areas of your life? Shows you your career, it shows you your children. The fifth house shows children, fourth house shows parents. So your chart is showing the natal promise of your entire life, of like
Mm,
events and also the kind of the end result of themes.
yeah.
But it's also showing your timing, like when is the natal promise getting activated? So it's much more about like timing and
Yeah.
whole life rather than day-to-day decision making. That's for sure that big difference.
Which also makes me feel like they're just like the most complementary systems ever, because one is like here, like know the whole picture of your life. And the other one is like, and this will help you like navigate that actual journey.
Yeah.
It feels like they're both so relevant. And astrology does play a role in human design. Human design pulls from lots of different systems, from astrology to the Kabbalah to the I Ching to like, they all kind of like play a role and create human design, but human design is its own thing. But its origins, are ancient, from all these ancient systems.
Wow. And I've seen on the human design chart, on the right hand side, it'll often show the planets like the sun, the moon. What does that all mean? I've always been confused by that part of the chart.
Totally. So basically, without, hopefully confusing people too much, we all have kind of different qualities that are alive within our chart. And those qualities, let me just take a quick look at your chart. And so, for example, like one of the qualities that's alive in your chart is around being incredibly creative, and also really good at kind of getting that creativity and all these things out into the world. And you're who's somebody who's really here to just be like kind of on your own path. You're not really here to emulate what others have done. You're here to be quite innovative. You need things to be like fresh and original and ever changing. And you're a very natural leader, but you're really good at like spotting things that are new and kind of spotlighting them in bigger ways. So that's a characteristic in your design. Part of that is placed in your sun, which means it's very connected to your purpose. So think of the planets and those other attributes as just offering like additional nuance to aspects of your chart. It's never the piece that I would recommend diving into at first, but it does help, yeah, just kind of reveal like how to navigate certain things in our chart. Like another example for you would be around the fact that you have a propensity to say yes to a lot of things. You have this like, and because of that, it requires you to be very discerning about what you say yes to, so you don't kind of get stuck in the wrong commitments. And so that for you is in your earth, which means like one of the most anchoring things for you in your life is to be so discerning about your yeses and not overcommit. So it just offers kind of additional nuance there.
Wow. I wonder if because I specialize in a unique branch in astrology called locational astrologies, like where in the world do themes in your natal promise come up and
Yeah.
energies and all that. I wonder if one could use the planets, like you mentioned the sun in my chart. If I go to sun lines, does it even activate that even more? I'm in that energy of that creative element you mentioned. It'd be something fun to experiment and test with.
Totally. I think that like, I feel like all these systems are so complementary, but I also feel like there's just hasn't been much exploration of like whether there are like linear paths where it's like, oh, this leads to this and these things can connect in charts. Like, I feel like there's so much that can be explored that hasn't been explored just yet.
Yeah. And so what are the kind of basics of human design? I know there's like the types and then there's the profiles. Those are two different things, right?
Correct. So in human design, there are 5 different types. If you guys don't yet know your human design, you can look it up at humandesignblueprint.com. Our types are so useful because they really speak to kind of our personality, but also how our energy moves and what our gifts are. Another key piece is something called the strategy, which is around how you can find your way into opportunities. Like, are you somebody who's meant to initiate and pursue? Are you somebody who's meant to kind of sit back and let things come? We also have something called the authority, which is around how you make decisions. So are you somebody who's meant to kind of trust your instantaneous response in the moment or sleep on things? And then, like you said, we have profile, which honestly, like profile is just speaks to so many parts of our life, but I would say it really speaks to kind of how to best align with our purpose and also how to share our work with the world. There are so many other parts of the chart beyond that, but I would say kind of beginning with the type, strategy, authority, profile, those 4 pieces, and honestly just type, strategy, authority can be so powerful and kind of getting you on the right path, in the right flow.
Wow. And I think in my chart, it's a emotional authority or sacral authority.
Sacral, yes. So for example, like just to kind of walk you guys through what it looks like in your chart, I'm happy to go through all of them if that would be helpful, but you are a manifesting generator. And so that means you are somebody, I know we referenced this briefly before, but you're somebody who's very multi-passionate by nature, somebody who's not meant to have an incredibly linear career path, somebody who's got a lot of energy and vitality and resource. And the key for you is to have pretty strong boundaries so that you're not kind of extending your energy into all these things that others want you to do, but you're staying really rooted in like what genuinely lights you up. Because when you really prioritize that, you become so magnetic and you have so much more energy. And also as a manifesting generator, you're here to be so fast. Like you can make things happen faster than anyone else. And sometimes you might experience some frustration if you expect others to move at your speed. So while you're here to embrace your speedy nature, it's important to not expect others to match you in that way. I'm curious how and if that all lands with you.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I want to say yes to everything. And I'm usually juggling a lot of projects at once. I'm usually doing many different things. No day is the same. Every day is different. But I think that's in alignment with the design of a manifesting generator,
Absolutely.
right? Having a lot of different things,
Totally. Having a lot of different things, like having every day feel like a little bit fresh, having like variety built in, like manifesting generators are just not really meant to stick with things forever. Also not meant to do just one thing and can get quite bored if every day is pretty routine.
Yeah.
And so like that is so important. Yet a lot of manifesting generators are made to feel scattered or like they're doing too much and like they should just niche down or choose a path when that is the most unnatural thing they can do.
And do you think, and then with the, I think strategy or authority, the reaching out versus the waiting for something to come in. I tend to reach out and initiate a ton. Is that in alignment with the sacral?
So your strategy is called responding. It basically means as a manifesting generator, you are somebody who's incredibly magnetic, especially when you're doing the things that you enjoy. And like in an ideal world, you're meant to kind of wait for things to show up in your world and spark your gut before you reach out. It doesn't have to be directed at you, meaning like you could listen to a podcast that really lights you up and you're like, I want to be on the podcast. I'm so excited by them. Like I feel so connected to the host. I'm going to pitch them, or it could be like seeing somebody on Instagram and be like, oh my God, they seem amazing. I'm going to reach out. But you basically want to be gut led and not led by what you think you maybe should do. And it's basically waiting for your body to kind of light up and expand and spark before you go pursue something.
Oh my gosh, all the manifesting generators that follow me on YouTube, because I've made some manifesting generator content just on like YouTube, people love, because there's so many manifesting generators out there that feel misunderstood or like they're crazy or
Totally.
they feel bad or shamed for all of these things. And I'm going to post some clips of this on the YouTube channel so that they can find this because it's so validating and so helpful. So any of you guys who are response, yeah.
Do you feel like, how does that land for you? Like, do you feel like you tend to reach out based on that gut response, or do you feel like it's more just like kind of blanket reach out? Like, what do you feel like works the most for you?
Oh no, I always listen to the body. Like literally my whole body kind of like straightens up. Like I'm curious, I get excited, I get a lot more energy in me when I'm finding something. Sometimes there'll be like a dangling carrot in front of me. And I'll feel like I need to do it, but my body doesn't want me to do it. Like whether it's like a reality TV show or like some sort of opportunity that comes in that's like, ooh, look at this shiny thing. And my mind is like, I should say yes to that. But my body and my gut is like, I don't know if that's the right path for me, actually, And that's
Totally.
usually like a contraction feeling I feel in my heart or my stomach when that happens.
Yeah. And so I think that there is so much misunderstanding around the responding because I think people can misinterpret it as they should sit at home and wait on the couch and see what happens. And that's not it at all. It's like you're here to be in the world, but you often don't know how something will make you feel until it shows up. Like you might feel like that reality TV show is like really like sexy when you think about it. And then it shows up and you're sitting with the people that you'd be working with and you're sitting with the producers and you're like, no. Yeah. So it's really about kind of letting that natural response be your guide. And that, is true of your authority. So the authority kind of then helps you assess more clearly which opportunities are right. And for you, it is sacral, which is basically all about trusting your gut feeling in the moment. There are many people that have to sleep on things or talk things out or kind of go through these other processes to reach clarity. But for you, it is so instantaneous. It is so body driven. It is so in the gut. And so you're kind of, as soon as you get that full bodied gut, yes, it's go time. If it's anything but that, it's often a recommendation to like not pursue it or just like not do it yet. And I would say one of the most powerful ways to access your gut feeling, your sacral, is to be asked very specific questions. So if we were in a session, you're like, Erin, I don't know whether I should like launch this new offering or do this thing. You know, my first response would be like, do you want to? Do you have the energy for it? Is the timing for it right for it now? And often when things are presented in that specific way, the answer is actually incredibly clear. It's just that you needed to kind of be asked it in a way that actually drew out your gut response.
Wow. Oh, all you sacral authorities, great information for you. Thank you for sharing that. And emotional authority, they need to sleep on it more, right?
That's
They need
right.
to kind of rest and think about it. Maybe not send the text right away.
Yeah, just give it a beat. You know, for emotional authorities, again, you guys can see that if you look up your human design chart at humandesignblueprint.com. But emotional authorities are just meant to give themselves a beat, like are meant to see like, yes, if you feel initially excited and this is my authority, amazing. Like note that. And then check back in how you feel the next day and the day after. Like I find for me, I often say yes excitedly in the moment. And then I wake up the next day and I'm like, why in the world did I commit to that thing? So while you are somebody who can trust your in the moment clarity, I'm somebody who's meant to kind of trust what feels good over time.
Oh, that is so helpful. And also just helps people feel not crazy or not alone. You know, that decision making. How do you personally make decisions? Human design is so helpful for that. Definitely, guys, get the blueprint because it is amazing. I have one for my husband too. It's so
Really?
helpful. Yes, I love them so much. And I actually, I think I used to be an affiliate, or maybe I still am an affiliate. And I was sent a posting the code on my Instagram stories for a while there. So yeah.
Oh my God, you're amazing. Well, we have the code again. You said it's Helena.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. Share the code. Yeah, and get
Yeah.
your blueprints to people. So going a little bit deeper into something kind of niche within human design. So environments. We all have like ideal environments where we thrive more. Is that right? Can human design show us that?
It can show us that. You want to go into them?
Yeah.
You know, I think it's one thing, and I'm glad we're talking about it because it's such a, you know, specific part of the chart that's often not talked about because it's a little bit of a deeper layer, but there's also a lot of misunderstanding around it. So again, if you guys look up your chart at humandesignblueprint.com and scroll down to environment, you'll see one of 6 listed. These things are very symbolic. So like, for example, your environment is shores. This does not mean that like you have to live on the water, but we'll kind of go through each one. Why don't we start with yours just to kind of give people a taste here? But it lets us know kind of qualities to look out for in the environments and also, how we can find it, whether or not we're living on the water in a city. So as somebody with shores environment, it means that you're somebody who might prefer to kind of live on the edge. There's something around kind of living near a space where there's like a tension of another space nearby. So an example of that would be living on the water where it's like the water and then you're on land. It could be like a porch. You know, I was just talking to somebody earlier who's like building her own little office and is building a porch because she kind of loves that inside outside tension. You know, it could be living in a suburb where you see the city, you know, or living right outside of downtown. Like it's basically being on the edge of spaces. You might even find if you go to a restaurant or movie theater, like being on the edge is the best place for you. So it's having kind of the perspective of a different space nearby. And that might be having an office where you're like near a window. I'm curious if you have noticed that in your own experience.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've always somehow lived, well, in beach towns, like where mountains meet beach or mountains and city meets beach my whole life. But where I'm living now, I'm living in downtown Versailles. And so I'm literally outside of Paris, but I've got this beautiful town here, bustling, beautiful town. I walk 5 minutes outside my house and I've got the Versailles Gardens. And it's just these forests and these huge stretches of greenery. And it feels like you're in a completely different place. Like you're completely out of a town. You're in the middle of a forest, middle of a lake, hedges everywhere. It feels like a different place. So it's
Wow.
like 5 minute walk. I go to a different place. I've noticed I get the most energy and I do my best work when I'm in transportation, on a plane, on a train, in the back of an Uber. Literally my best work, my best ideas. I'm more productive in an hour bus ride than I am 6 hours sitting on my desk. that crazy?
That is crazy. Yeah. That's
That's
amazing.
shores though, right? It's like the meeting the edge or like going from one place to the next.
Totally. 100%. And so again, it's a thing to think about. Like, how can you bring that more into your life? Like, how can you set up your working area where there is another space, or be on the move where it feels like you're moving through different spaces, or whatever the thing is, because, our being in the right space is often what kind of gets us into our optimal flow. Or is like, can you plan a vacation as somewhere where shores are easily accessible? So some of the other environments, there are also environments called caves. And caves is really around people who prefer to have kind of like a very enclosed, protected space. I once did a session with somebody who had caves, and like she was in her office and like took her session from her closet. Like, it was just like, how like cave-like can I become? So these people often do well when they're in these like enclosed spaces, whether it's their car, whether it's having like a room they can kind of retreat to in their own house. They often also do well when they have like their back to the wall and they can like see everything in front of them, where they're not kind of just like in an open floor plan where like anybody can come out of nowhere. These people might prefer like booths at restaurants, or just again sitting where they have like a perspective of a whole space. But I think when I sit with people with caves, I often recommend, if there is a space they can create in their own home that they can retreat to and close the door, that might feel really nourishing and quite restorative to them.
Beautiful. What's your type?
Mine is called kitchens, which is not about living in a kitchen, of course, but it's about the value of being in spaces where it feels like things are like transforming and buzzy and creative and becoming something. And, I moved to the woods a couple of years ago, and kitchens is not readily accessible where I live, although like hosting gatherings is for sure kitchens, or being parts of conversations online, those things can be kitchens. But I always love being part of a co-working space or a creative space, because I can like kind of tap into that like creative buzzy space. I helped open this co-working space in New York City, and it was such a fun exploration of my kitchen's place, because just being in a place where it felt like things were just becoming things and I was part of it, like, was so thrilling.
Wow. I love
Yeah.
that.
So it's so interesting. Some of the other
Yeah.
ones are valleys. These people are really sensitive to sound. So being in spaces where they really like the sounds and like what they're hearing, what they hear when they walk out of the door. Also being in spaces where like things are accessible, like they can walk and there's like a movie theater or a cafe or a coffee shop. There are mountains. That's another environment around kind of the value of elevation. These people often like living up high and having perspective. And there's also markets, which is being around kind of like commerce and like where things are happening and being exchanged, and really doing well. Kind of honestly, they're often best friends with the people they work with. So you can see it's not, again, it's symbolic, and these environments can coexist in many different ways, but it is such a fun part of the chart to look at.
Yeah, and I was just thinking with mountains types, it's like they don't have to live in the mountains. They could maybe
No,
be in a skyscraper overlooking a
totally.
city.
Exactly. It's like when they are, when I sit with people in New York City, it's just like garden apartments might not be their thing, but like just being somewhere where they have perspective, or even on hotels, like being on a higher floor if possible. Like these people often love airplanes, or even like hiking or skydiving or skiing, like any of those things that kind of naturally provide them that perspective.
Wow. Oh, that is fascinating. And how can people find their ideal environment?
So if you can look it up at humandesignblueprint.com and just scroll down at the kind of list of attributes, and you'll see something listed as environment. It's a third from the bottom.
Wow. And they're kind of categorized into two sections, right? There's like the three types, like shores, mountains, and valleys. And then there's markets, kitchens, and caves, right? They're kind of separated
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, yeah, they're, again, I don't know if it's like a too technical part of the, of the chart, but I think, there are the three first ones and then the three second ones. So the first three are caves and markets and kitchens, and then it's mountains, valleys, and shores. And so the first three tend to be found a little bit more in urban environments, but it's not totally excluded to that. Whereas the latter three tend to kind of extend beyond that.
Yeah, it's really fascinating about the cave. So my husband is a cave type,
Yeah.
and he needs to feel safe and secure in all of his environments. Like he
Yes.
kind of likes controlling the environment a little bit. Like he likes
100%.
moves. Yeah, is that a cave type attribute?
It's helpful for them to control who comes in and who comes out, because I think, again, when they're in like a really open space where they don't have that control, it can feel like very destabilizing for them. And
Mhm.
so again, it's not like overly controlling it, but it's like having a space where they can shut the door, they can open the door, they can kind of control the natural flow. is often a thing that brings them a lot of security. And again, it's even being in a booth at a restaurant because it just feels like more closed and more protected, and they're kind of not open and available to everything.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool. There's so many parts of human design that are fascinating. I know there's like smells or scents. There's different senses that people have that are more kind of awakened than others, right? Different talents. There's so much. What is your? I'm so curious. What is your what is that called? That part of the chart that shows like
That
your.
part of the chart is called the cognition. And so cognition is a part that speaks to our strongest sense. So it can be smell, it can be touch, it can be feeling, it can be inner vision, outer vision. There's so many possibilities here. But for me, it's called feeling. And it
Oh,
basically is around being very sensitive to just like honestly every part of a space. Like I think that being really sensitive to like just like what's happening in a space and the energy, and like I think I walk into spaces and like they just feel right or they don't, and like being in the wrong space makes it actually very hard to like eat or settle. And like I didn't really know what part of my chart to look to for that, and feeling really helped me understand just like how sensitive I am, and also how okay it is to walk into a restaurant and be like, this is not for me, you know.
yeah.
Whereas yours is smell, and it really is around the fact that there's so much information you get through how things smell. Like if you walk into a restaurant, like how it smells, or honestly with your partner and how they smell, and like even smelling food before you eat it, you know, those things can really, it just gives you information. Whereas somebody with touch might find that they get so much insight through hugging people, through like touching their avocados, you know, like, so it's just, it just helps us kind of tap into, I would say, another way of just, you know, getting clear on whether or not something's right for us.
I love that. Kind of going briefly back to the environments, I once heard from someone, they said something like by the time you hit your Saturn return, you kind of should be in your ideal environment, or you might start to feel like, I don't know, your body doesn't respond as well if you're in an environment that's super antithetical to your ideal environment. Is that true? Like when you hit your Saturn return, you kind of want to make it a priority to be in your ideal environment?
Yes, you know, the founder of human design, Ra, he would always say that like the environment didn't really become important until 30. At the same time, like I think knowing your kids' environments can be really useful, and knowing it before 30. And like he also shared many examples of the value of that, but it becomes the most important 30 and beyond. You know, I would say that being in the right environment is often like where things flow the most in our lives. And so when we're in environments that don't feel right, we'll often sense it. And like things often just like don't work out in all the ways that we want, you know? And so again, like I think that we can find our environment in many different places, but yeah, I think that like we're going to find the most flow when we honor. And I sat with somebody who her environment was valleys. So again, that's around her sensitivity, like the acoustics of a space and how a space sounds. And for her, like she was living in LA and she like hated the sound of traffic and cars, and like she just like couldn't find any kind of flow in the city. And she ended up moving to London, where she woke up and like heard like the horses on the like cobblestone streets, and she was like, I love how this all sounds. And like, you know, things started happening in her life around meeting a partner and a job coming up. So like for her, being in the right environment is what kind of created more things to come her way that felt exciting and felt aligned for her. So yes, I think being in our right environment gets us in the right flow. But, you know, I sat with a family who, you know, I don't remember all of them. I think it was shores, mountains, and caves, and they lived together, you know, and they lived
Wow.
in New York City. And it was really around how they could each find it. Like the shores was like, you know, the balcony was like his favorite part of the room. And like the mother had caves and she could kind of like close the door, you know, and mountains was accomplished by the fact that they lived in a skyscraper. So again, I don't want people to feel like restricted by their environment, in that like I live in the city and therefore I can't find it. But you'll often feel pretty intuitively and instinctively whether or not a space is right for you. Like I think that you didn't know that you were shores 10 years ago, but I imagine you were probably still drawn to being on the water then.
Oh yeah, isn't that fascinating? That is, it's so so interesting. Do we have kind of like an opposite environment where it's like the environment that's like kind of like least preferential for each of us?
Hmm. I would say that it's not that there's like one that's least preferential, but there's one that we maybe think that we should be drawn to and like can get a little bit stuck in that one. Like for example, for you, it would be kitchens.
Oh,
Kind of
okay.
be like, I've got to be in these really like urban creative spaces where things are happening. And it doesn't mean you can't be in those spaces, but like for you, it is kind of having the perspective, having the view, having different spaces that will likely feel a lot more nourishing. So we
Fascinating.
Yeah, we have spaces like, or for example, your partner who's caves, like they'll like need to be like mountains. I've got to be up high, when it's like actually like having a little bit more control and being in an enclosed space might feel a little bit more restorative for him.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I've noticed like even going to meetups or community events or just being around large groups of people. I don't know if that's the kitchen's part, but when I do that, I feel like I have to be there. And then when I'm there, I feel like it's not ideal. Like my energy is always drained. I need that space
Yes.
and that perspective. I think that's also the five in the profile of like needing to watch and then wait and then
Yeah.
come to the scenario when I need it and then go
Mm-hmm.
away again and like allow myself to disappear for a while. I don't always have to be of service. I don't always have to be on for others. And that's something I'm still learning how to do as a 3-5. And that you could go more deeper in the blueprint on like what profile you are. But yeah, and then I think that really, really relates with the kitchen environment too. Very fascinating.
Totally. I know these things all really tend to work together. But yeah, and like you're also again think of like going to a gathering, like you're probably not somebody who's going to like want to be in it all. Like it's going to be really good to like kind of be on the edge and be more in observation, kind of have perspective from the outside instead of always being in the middle of it all.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about human design?
I think my favorite thing about human design is that it tends to remind people of the things they already know. It doesn't feel like you're giving them all this new information where it's not like, oh, you're like you're giving me this foreign language. It tends to be like, oh yeah, like I do like living on the water, or I do make decisions quickly, or like, yeah, opportunities do emerge this way. So I think it gives us a language like that is actually the way that works for me. And life will be so much better if I honor it. So that's my favorite piece, is that it tends to just return people to the things they already know and haven't felt permission to step into. And so, and I think also, you know, human design, similar to astrology, just reminds us that we're all wired so differently. And yet we can really get caught up trying to emulate how others are doing things, how they're building their businesses, or how they're parenting, or how they're partnering, or how they're working. And I think human design really gets us very clear on like, what is the unique way of doing things that will work for you, your design, your chart. And like, I find that to be so empowering for people because they often have spent a lot of their lives trying to do everything but that.
Yeah. Oh, you're such an inspiration. Your projector like energy is just like, oh, I could listen and learn from your wisdom all day. Well, where can people find you? How can people go deeper, get the blueprint? And yeah, how can people follow your work?
So you can go to humandesignblueprint.com, and humandesignblueprint.com/guide is where you can get the blueprint guide. We have the discount code. I also have a new book out called How Do You Choose? A Human Design Guide to What's Best for You at Work and Love and in Life. It's a very practical exploration of how you can actually use this system in your career and relationships. So if you really want to like know how to use it to find your next step in your career and navigate a relationship, it's really meant for that. It's so full of stories. That's wherever books are sold. We also have courses if you're like ready to go into the deep end of all things human design. And on Instagram, I'm at Erin Claire Jones and Human Design Blueprint.
Amazing. Oh, you're brilliant. What a light. What a shining. You're an expert in the human design space. Seriously, it's been such an honor to chat with you, and thank you for coming on Cosmic Compass. And you can find all the details down below to learn more from Erin. And thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.